She sat on the cold sidewalk, a small paper bag of coins clutched in her hands, counting them over and over. Every penny mattered. Tonight, she promised her little boy a simple treat, a slice of pizza, but as she added up the coins, her stomach sank. There wasn't nearly enough. The streetlights flickered above, casting long shadows over her worn shoes and tired face. People hurried past, too busy with their own lives to notice the small struggle unfolding on the corner. Then, from across the street, a sleek black car rolled to a stop. The driver stepped out, his tailored suit and expensive watch, making him stand out like a different world entirely. He watched silently as she struggled, her hands shaking slightly, trying to make the coins stretch. He didn't know her story, but something about her determination, and the love in her eyes stopped him in his tracks. What he did next would change everything for her in ways she never imagined. But would she even trust a stranger, someone from a world so far removed from hers? Or would pride and fear keep her from accepting the help that could turn her life upside down? The answer hung in the air, waiting for the next moment to unfold. She hesitated, clutching the coins tighter, as the man approached. There was something calm and kind in his eyes, but she had learned the hard way not to trust strangers. Life had not been easy for her. After losing her husband 2 years ago, she had been raising her little boy alone, working long hours at a diner for barely enough to cover rent and groceries. Every day was a struggle, every coin carefully counted, every decision weighed. Yet, despite it all, she refused to let her son feel the weight of their hardship. Tonight was supposed to be a small moment of joy, a slice of pizza, a rare treat to make him smile. The man stopped a few feet away, nodding gently toward the coins. "Trying to make this work for both of you?" he asked softly. She looked up, unsure if he expected an answer. There was something in the way he spoke, something that made her chest tighten with a mix of caution and hope. Who was he? Why was he here? She wanted to ask, but the words caught in her throat. As the wind shifted and the city buzzed around them, she realized this encounter might change everything, but how? She didn't yet know. She finally managed a small nod, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't have enough." The man's eyes softened, but there was a seriousness in his tone that made her heart race. "Sometimes, what you need isn't just about the money," he said, glancing down at the coins, "but about the choices we make when we feel we have nothing." His words puzzled her, yet they stirred something deep inside, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and a flicker of hope she hadn't felt in months. Meanwhile, across the street, a security guard at a nearby shop noticed the scene. He frowned, wondering why a wealthy-looking man was talking to a woman who clearly struggled. Was this a scam, or something more unusual? The city seemed to hold its breath around them, as if it too sensed that tonight was different. Inside her mind, the mother wrestled with conflicting thoughts. Should she accept help from someone so obviously wealthy? Pride whispered no, fear shouted yes, and the desire to see her son's face light up overpowered both. Little did she know, this encounter was not just about pizza. It was about decisions, about trust, and about forces invisible, some unseen, that could change both their lives forever. As the man reached into his pocket, her hands trembled, and the air seemed to thicken with possibilities. What he pulled out next would set the course of the night, but she had no idea how deep this story would go. The man's hand hovered over his pocket for a moment longer than necessary, and she felt her chest tighten. Every second stretched painfully as her mind raced through 1,000 what-ifs. What if this was some kind of trick? What if accepting help came with strings she couldn't imagine? Yet, even as doubt clawed at her, she couldn't ignore the way her son's small hand squeezed hers, full of trust and expectation. Around them, the city's sounds faded into a strange silence. The hum of traffic, the chatter of passersby, even the distant wail of a siren seemed to recede, leaving just the two of them in a fragile bubble of tension. The security guard watched closely, unsure whether to intervene, his instincts torn between caution and curiosity. Her heart pounded as she tried to steady her shaking hands, counting the coins once more, teeny, insignificant in the shadow of what the man offered. He smiled faintly, a quiet patience in his gaze, yet his eyes held something more, a test, a question, unspoken. Could she trust him? Could she take the leap? Then, just as she reached toward him, a sudden noise, a screech of tires, a shout from the street made her jump back. The moment fractured, leaving the air thick with uncertainty. Everything hung in balance, and in that instant, she knew nothing would ever be the same again. Before she could recover from the sudden noise, her eyes caught something that made her freeze. From the shadows of the alley nearby, a group of well-dressed people emerged, their expressions sharp and calculating. The man she thought was here to help wasn't alone. These weren't just strangers passing by. They moved with purpose, and something in their synchronized steps made her stomach churn. The man noticed her hesitation and stepped slightly in front of her, as if shielding her without saying a word. "You need to stay calm," he murmured, but his voice carried a tension she hadn't heard before. For the first time, she saw that even he might be caught in a web bigger than this small street corner. Her simple hope for a pizza now felt like the smallest thread in a much larger, more dangerous tapestry. Her son tugged at her sleeve, sensing her unease. She wanted to smile and reassure him, but the fear in her chest made her fingers clench into the coins she had brought. Why were these people here? What did they want with him or with her? And why did the man who had seemed like a savior now look like someone running from something he couldn't fully explain? Everything shifted in an instant. And the night that began with a simple act of kindness suddenly teetered on the edge of something she could never have predicted. The man's eyes flicked to the approaching group, then back to her and her son. In a swift, almost rehearsed motion, he reached into his pocket not for money this time, but for his phone. He tapped a few buttons, and within moments, a black SUV rolled silently to the curb. The people in the alley hesitated, exchanging frustrated glances, before melting back into the shadows as if they'd been expecting reinforcements. Her heart pounded, relief and confusion battling inside her. Who are they? She whispered, clutching her son tightly. The man finally smiled, a real unguarded smile this time. Let's just say I have friends who take care of problems before they become disasters, he said, keeping his tone calm but firm. Then, almost casually, he handed her an envelope. Inside were enough vouchers and money to cover not just a pizza tonight, but months of groceries and essentials, enough to give her and her son some breathing room. She looked up, tears welling in her eyes. Why me? He hesitated, then said, because sometimes the smallest act of hope is the bravest thing in the world. Just as she began to feel safe, her son pointed toward the SUV. A familiar face appeared in the window, someone she recognized from her past, someone she thought she'd escaped long ago. The smile froze on her lips. Tonight wasn't over. The streets might be safer, but a new chapter of unexpected challenges was just beginning. Her heart raced as the familiar face in the SUV disappeared into the night, but the man gently guided her and her son toward the car. Don't worry about the past tonight, he said softly. Right now, you have a choice to move forward. She glanced down at her son, who grinned despite the tension, and realized that for the first time in months, she felt a flicker of real hope. The man drove them to a small, warm restaurant, where the aroma of freshly baked pizza filled the air. Her son's eyes widened with excitement, and she laughed, a sound she hadn't realized she'd missed. As they ate, she noticed the man watching them quietly, a calm reassurance in his presence. It wasn't just about the pizza or the money. It was about showing that kindness and generosity could appear in the most unexpected places, even on a cold city street. By the time they left, she had a plan to rebuild her life with a little help and a lot of courage. The encounter had changed her perspective. Sometimes trust and a single act of bravery could open doors she never imagined. As they walked home hand in hand, she knew the city felt different, brighter, full of possibilities, and that even small moments could hold extraordinary magic.